Thank you, Daniel, for the introduction. I don't want to delay the process too much. I think this is a very exciting adventure that we are moving into, having master's classes, and I think we have to congratulate Daniel and his team for this initiative. Good idea, and I think we should cash in on these opportunities to get some. I consider it as being order in the house of community development in general. I'm going to start screen sharing and start the presentation. Let me just get there. And I hope you can see my slides. It's probably available. Thank you very much. In general, ladies and gentlemen, this session will cover, I will cover the introduction there. I will ratchet through the concepts and then talk about the work of the community and the position of the community development practitioner in this whole story. But what is important is that I have to state the theoretical paradigm where I come from. Talking about capacity building and empowerment takes me back to theory. It takes me back to community development as a discipline. And therefore, I want to state it categorically that I consider community development as an identifiable and demarcated discipline. It's rooted in the social sciences with some intersections with the environmental sciences. It's a relative new science compared to some other scientific disciplines, but therefore we have developed the notion to borrow from quite a number of other subjects. We have some ideas and concepts coming from anthropology, economics, geography, and the name of them all. But what is important is that community development as a subject is still in the development phase as we move on, and we have different approaches, and it has unique elements that evolve and continues to evolve. Specifically onto these two concepts that's so central in our work, namely the community and development. What disturbed me quite a lot when we talk about community development, before I move into capacity building and empowerment, is that we are so overwhelmed and we have become so used to slogans of best practice, typical best practice slogans, as if this makes it a science. And this is a disturbing factor for me. You know, we have very nice and moralistic sayings, statements like go to the people, allow us to live with them, learn with them, and so forth and so forth. It's good and nice to hear, but seldom, if ever, an outsider will become an indigenous member of a community. If not, and if he tries to, he will probably, especially cultural groups, probably be accepted at the end of his lifespan, and probably thereafter, he would get the honors of being a member of that community. This thing of, as long as we can do something good in a community, it's going to be good. It should be good. You can't do something bad if you try something positive. And then that's also not true in total. Yes, there is an element of truth in it, but you can do the right thing at the wrong time and have a negative effect in my exercise in this community. We could carry on with all these different statements that we have, and we have within them empowerment and capacity building, and it drives me crazy how we use these words exchangively and have these words in different sentences meaning different things. Just as a comment, I think we should probably think about moving a little bit away from the concept community development. It's so deeply ingrained, I know, but it has got such a lot of connotations associated with it that I think we should think about, have more focus about improving quality of life. Because development gives me this concept of the premises of somebody knows somewhere better than I know here. And that is why you need development. But this is a future music for us, and that we could be thinking of in future deliberations. But we must know, ladies and gentlemen, that it's important community development should free itself from these amorphous origins and getting some order in the house of what we really mean when we talk about community development. It seems to be that the good practitioner is often associated with a good management project manager, and associated with that often good communication strategist, because he could communicate to the community to get involved. This doesn't make community development a science. These are all methods and techniques that we use in our programs and projects. But we must be very much aware of the fact that to launch a plausible project in a community, to launch a so-called development project, because always these concepts are linked to development in a community, doesn't mean that we deal with community development as a discipline. And the problem is that when it happens, when community development happens, we often have to, the practitioner's success of it is often be associated with it, that it is possible to get development, have a result, and then they contributed to unique circumstances, or the community did participate in it. We have to move away from these notions and get more clarity, more order in the house. So just to integrate best practices are all approaches and methods. And it does not necessarily have a scientific paradigm or background in our practices. We have to take up this challenge, and let's go into more detail about empowerment and capacity building. To get there, we must know what theory is. And allow me 2 or 3 minutes on what a theory is. Curlinger gave a good definition of what theory is. You know, it is propositions that present a systematic view of phenomena, verifying relations, specifying relations among variables and those things. The bottom line is that when we deal with science, we need to get clarity on the concepts. And let us be clear, ladies and gentlemen, this idea that theorists live in ivory towers and are detached from reality and practice is absolute nonsense. You cannot have theory without practice. All theories are built on practice, practical examples. In fact, theories try to get some order within an array of different practical situations so that we could make sense out of it about what works and what does not work. So a good theory is usually the apex of well-conceptualized definitions and subject jargon. This is interrelated, which makes logic sense. Also, good theories withstood the challenges of the times, and is usually simple. And we find that often. Theory of gravity nowadays is withstood the challenges of times, although there are some people still challenging the theories of gravity. It gives satisfaction for explanations most of the time. And you could carry on with these criteria. It is usually open enough, but also closed enough to be predictive. And that is why a guy like Kurt Lewin had this very spot-on statement, made a spot-on. He was a social psychologist. He said, there's nothing so practical as a good theory. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let us discard this notion that talking theory is ivory tower stuff. The problem with good theories and bad theories or non-theories is that we often find ourselves in community development that we work around typologies and models. And we don't move into the level of abstraction of theories because the distinct element of a theory is, of a good theory is, it is explanatory most of the time and has some element of prediction in it. And this is so important to take notice of that. If we are talking about community development as a model and an approach and this method and this technique, we're not on the level of theory. We are trying to move into explanatory and prediction. We know it is not an exact science. We know we're not talking about natural laws, where it is empirically predictive. And we deal with factual statements, like the law of gravity. That is the apex of theory, which takes us into laws. But the theory is what it is. It is not a law as yet. And the theory is what it is. It brings some order in the house of typologies and models. So the model and having a model and an approach is not good enough in community development. It's not good enough to say, I have and I operate according to a theory. We have to move into the realm of a good theory. So what is a good theory? A good theory is more than just an approach or those moralistic slogans that I gave you earlier, the slide shown earlier. It's more than just good talk, good thinking, logic elements. We have to be more predictive in where we are going for this. If we don't have theory, we won't be able to explain when a community development project works because we don't know why it works. And when it doesn't work, we also don't know why it works. And when you talk about sustainability of development projects, of a development program, we're talking about long term. And then we're further in trouble. So let us go to the concepts of empowerment and capacity building and to get some order in that house for us. Empowerment and capacity building in combination, it's the two concepts that would create this much needed and trigger the much needed sustainability of projects. And if we make a distinction between these two concepts, we will get there very easily. And I'm going to ratchet you quickly now for the next phase through this. Empowerment capacity building are often used as exchange words. And these examples I put there on the screen for you come from real text. I didn't put the references there because I don't want to put people in positions when they read it. Some of you might be one of the authors of this. But you could see I highlighted the blue there, how empowerment and capacity is used as in exchange, interchangeably. When you look at that one, empowerment is one of the leading approaches in community development, where practitioners work with community members to build their power, resources, and capacity. You see, we're getting nowhere with these concepts. We don't know what we're talking about, and we use it if and when needed. And it is like the concept of community development. The more often you use it, and the more often you use it in your speeches, the better it could be, because it sounds so nice on the ear. Empowering people, building capacity, and somehow we don't know what we talk about. And that was where the origin of empowerment comes from various sources. But, you know, Chambers started with that, and he was talking about powerlessness of people and this poverty trap that they were caught into. Some people lack the power or to influence and so forth. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is important that we just look at what empowerment covers from a community development perspective. Now, I want to be clear on this. I'm not talking about empowerment from a psychological perspective or a sociological perspective only. I'm talking now about empowerment from a community development perspective. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the three spheres only, because I do think there's a fourth sphere, but that is for discussion at a later stage. Let's take it as it is. If community development perspective if we want to do empowerment from a good community development perspective, empowerment should cover the three spheres. The one is the political, the social, and the economic spheres. In the economic sphere, it should be the underprivileged are empowered with a fair distribution and access to resources. So that is sort of economic empowerment. And then we have another sphere, which is more in the political, that give you access to decision-making and so forth. And there's a social element, which is education and health and sustainability of livelihoods and so forth in medical environment. All in all, ladies and gentlemen, from a community development perspective, there are intersections that we should take note of. These areas are all unique overlaps in the empowerment environments of people. So empowerment means there could be something which is socio-economic empowerment. Political, economic, or econopolitical empowerment, I don't know the word there, political, social, and then we have this so-called center there also that could be sort of considered holistic empowerment, which encompasses all three of it. Empowerment would be this thing of an individual. If we talk about empowerment, we are talking about empowering individuals, training individuals into areas that could empower their position. Empowerment refers to individuals in communities. You empower not a community. You empower individuals. And this order we must get in the house in the conceptualization of community development theory. You don't empower society or communities. You empower individuals. When we talk about capacity building, it follows empowerment. Capacity is the sort of reservoir of empowered people in a community. It is this this vault of skills and knowledge of empowered individuals required to produce the goods and services that would satisfy their needs in the community. So this aspect of empowerment takes us further. That is the linking of empowered individuals in a community. That is a process of capacity building. So from a community development perspective, capacity refers to the reservoir of empowered individuals, groups, and organizations that exist in the community. Capacity building, then, would refer to the functional orchestration and integration of empowered people and organizations into a sustainable communal reservoir of indigenous knowledge and skills to improve the communal systems, those three systems that I referred to earlier, to the spectrum of their needs. And we have some ways of doing this. The ABC approach is one of the ways that facilitates the capacity building process. But in knowing that there's a difference between empowerment and capacity building, it's so important that it takes us back to theory, that we should make a distinction between these words, where empowerment focuses on individual training, empowering individuals to become experts, to overcome obstacles. Capacity building refers to bringing them together in the community to cash into each other's expertise and bring them together to the bigger whole. Empowerment is the link, and capacity building is the link and the foundation of community participation. Often we find that community participation becomes a communication strategy. But if it's only a communication strategy, then it would depend on who is the communication specialist you bring on board. But if we understand that empowerment means individual expertise, training, investment in individuals, in communities where there's a lack of skills, and building the capacity of this community by linking these individuals together, we actually have laid the foundation for participation, communal participation. So from a community development theoretical perspective, without empowerment of individuals, capacity building will be ineffective. I cannot build capacity without empowered individuals. And participation will be absent, irrespective of your skills of being a communication strategist. So for meaningful participatory capacity building process, and you just check the words that I used there. For a meaningful participatory capacity building process, empowerment should cover all three of those traditional areas. And the processes of empowerment capacity building should move into participation and should lay the foundation of it. It is sort of the expected that would happen. So the empowerment process feeds into the capacity building process, feeds into the community participation process. I have 3 slides left. If the role of community development practitioner now is to move the critical mass in a community to a sustainable, very important word, improved quality of life, the distinction between capacity building and empowerment becomes extremely important. If we don't make that distinction, we don't know where we are going. Our possibility of prediction of outcomes becomes less. We're not in the world and the arena of a theory. We are talking about typologies and methodologies and approaches. The community practitioner's function thus would be to identify through empowerment and train and orchestrate, that is the building the capacity in a community, in line with the projects and programs designed to improve the quality of life in this community, but to move the critical mass. Doing, ladies and gentlemen, a do-good, nice to have charity project in a community is not community development. It is assisting a group of people in a community to survive, to get going. If we move the critical mass in a community, we're talking about community. And that means that we have to get the capacity building and empowerment in place, empowerment and capacity building in strategy in place, so that we could move the critical mass through their participation. And I hope this makes some sense to you, and therefore the theoretical distinction between empowerment, capacity building may be considered the two most important practical tools for the community development practitioner. If you talk about sustainable development, the capacity building must be such that it could take the community on auto drive. Because sustainable development means, like any community, I like to say that community development practitioners, as a community development practitioner, I'm in the business to get me out of business. And this is exactly what we are doing. You want to get involved because you want to have to get out. It should be a sustainable environment that you create that could go forward without me. Because who am I? Who am I? Who is this individual involved? If that individual in the community moves out of the community, then this whole project will fall flat again. And we're back to square one. So yes, it is sustainability. And if you talk about sustainability, this distinction between capacity building and empowerment becomes crucial. It's like the conductor, being a conductor for an orchestra. This individual, the conductor, is actually empowering people in the economic sector, in the community, people in the political and social sectors in this community, bringing them all together into an orchestrated song or music production with all their different skills. So the role of the community development practitioner, ladies and gentlemen, evolves around these three spheres of societal function. And if you look at this, the role of the community development practitioner is to manage empowerment needs in line with the needed project movement in this community, needs of the community. The role is to build the capacity by linking these empowered people together. That is capacity building. You could see bringing them all together. And obviously you could see for yourself, it could be that bringing them together in different spheres here and here would have different environments, different skills that you bring together. And ladies and gentlemen, the operational area of the community development practitioner is this conductor of this orchestrated philharmonic orchestra or choir. This is the field of the community and the operational field of the community development practitioner. It covers all of it. He's not a project manager. He's not a communication specialist. He's not an educationist. He's actually, his playing field is this red circle on the outside, including empowerment, including capacity building, orchestrating it to the bigger whole. And it's only then that we could see we have in the community development practitioner a professional trained scientist coming from a community development field of a subject that is specialized and a science. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention. I said I'll finish before 22 to Daniel. And yes, it's time for questions and for a colloquial debate on these issues, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's still an open debate, and I'd like to hear some comments on what was said. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you, David, for such an illuminating presentation, quite detailed. And of course, today you are a master and you've really led us from the front, challenging our thinking and understanding on some of the key issues that we've been grappling with. And of course, indicating that if and when we become successful in promoting our practice and discipline, then of course we'll be out of business because the communities then will be in charge. And thank you very much. Can we give Professor DeWitt a round of applause? And so I welcome many comments. Could post them on the chat. You could also raise your hand. I see Lesogo is already having a hand up, and Mpotseng. Let's have those two in that order, and then we can get some more. Lesongo first, and then Mpotseng. Okay, Mpotseng, it looks like Lesongo may not be ready.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. And like I indicated, I'm from the Department of Social Development, and we are working with community development practitioners. And we need more of this. Thank you also to the organizers for this masterclass. But I also indicated in the chat box that we've got a challenge with our colleagues that could not register. Just want to check whether this is going to be shared and the slides. Yeah, but thank you. This is so informative. We are learning, and it's what we really need. We need more of this. Thank you.
For information, the session is being recorded, and all the resources that we have will be available, and we'll be willing to share them. We'll post them on the IACD website, but you could also send them directly to all those who are interested. My apologies that I noted that quite a number of people are not able to join, possibly because they did not register, but equally you have also shared out the link. I will find out what exactly might have happened that people are not able to get in, but we are grateful and we appreciate your positive comments. This is a journey we're starting to learn together, and of course, I'm welcoming all of us again to take the charge. I appreciate DeWitt is making a presentation one after another in quick succession and willing again to be the pioneer masterclass presenter. Thank you very much. Amidu, let's come to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. The presentation was really very insightful, and we have really learned a lot about it. I'm calling from Nigeria, from the Department of Local Government and Development Studies, Ahmed Bello University, Zaria. To be precise, I want to find out from him. Already you can see most developing countries, especially in Africa, they are always talking about social protection. And then the social protection programs at times are dovetailed to the communities. Now, in terms of community empowerment, in terms of capacity building, what are the necessary tools? For example, if one wants to measure if, as an academician, you want to measure if in a certain community, the government has claimed that it has empowered so many people, it has built capacity of so many people, what are the available tools of community development that one can use to measure such claims, so that it will not just be on the basis of opinion, but something very empirical? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amidu. If you have another intervention, then we can ask Dawit to present. Lesoko, are you ready to make your comment?
Well, I like the question. I think it's very important that we do and make this distinction when we talk about social protection programs. Because if you want to work on social protection in a community, especially also rural communities, you have to get individuals who take this task on and are knowledgeable about it. And as you create these expertise, these trained individuals, you have to, through that, you have to build the capacity in this community, in the broader community, and link them with outside communities, with the local authorities and the government. So it's so important that building the capacity also means access from the community, within the community, to outside governmental sources. So the capacity does not necessarily end with only indigenous individual people. It means that I have an empowered individual that would have access to information and resources outside my community. And that is the type of people we have to empower in the communities that could, may I call it, could kick open the doors to get access to resources. We have to get that people empowered to do that, and those individuals in the community. Yes, we have techniques that could measure the success of this. It's not part of this presentation. It is possible to do it. We call it, and I think one of my colleagues in the class with Cornell knows it very well. We talk about the priority index of needs in communities. But all in all, if we make this distinction, and I followed your discussion, you said that we have to capacitate the people in the community. Yes, you have to capacitate the community, but we have to empower the people in the community. For the capacitation is the community development practitioners' field of expertise. And that's a unique field. It's not psychology, it's not psychology, it's not social work, it's community development.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that intervention. Yeah, Amidu will, the resources that we have will share, and we'll always keep them available on the IACD website. Of course, one of the issues also you're asking might also be addressed in the forthcoming webinar presentation. We'll be talking about impact assessment, where some of the tools also that we use will also be presented upon. But thank you all the same. I'm looking at the chat whether we have anybody else on.
I should probably tell you where I'm uncomfortable with my presentation. I'm uncomfortable at the moment, and this is the status of community development theory. I'm uncomfortable with only those three spheres. You know, when you have a community, we do have economic sector or sphere, the political sphere, decision-making sphere, and we have the social sphere. But it seems to be, may I call it, there are spaces in between. We all live in houses, and there are open spaces in between us. And that means that the environment has a direct impact on both the political, economic, and social spheres. And what I'm so proud of is saying that I speak to you and me, and we are all African people. I speak to you as an African, and we are so sensitive for living in harmony with the environment. So I think, and we could expect this space to develop a little bit further, to integrate the environmental aspects from a community development, human sciences perspective. We're talking about the connection between the environment and the human. We're not talking about planting seeds for whatever it is and genetic modeling and so forth. It is about this interaction field, overlapping field. But that as a comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is a question or a request that for purposes of mentoring that we can share your email address. Mentoring is one of the issues that we discussed in terms of going forward, that it will become one of our best practices in our region, and possibly we are requesting, if that's okay, that we can share your email address for those who might want to get in touch for mentoring purposes, of course, within limit that. Okay, then Sadi, you have your hand is up. Kindly, you can go.
Thank you very much, Prof, for this great presentation. I just wanted to get your opinion as an African in South Africa. What could be a problem with our community development approach in South Africa? Because we see rising levels of vulnerability and less resilience in our communities. What could be the problem from your own perspective?
Extremely good and timely question and comment. If we make this distinction, it is the disempowerment of individuals. When we see vigilante behavior, when we see what we call, courts, what's it called, some other courts, it just slipped my mind now. When people take over the role of the police, we deal with people that are disempowered. So they start to take power into their own hands, and then it's a disaster. Then we deal with crowd behavior and mob behavior. Well, bundu courts, that was the word I was talking about. We're talking about bundu courts. The community decides who's guilty and so forth. I think this distinction goes some way to give us an indication of what's wrong. Because what people in community, and we see it. Ladies and gentlemen, in South Africa, people live not for 1 year, for 2, 3, 4 years in villages with sewage runs in the streets. And they live with it. How disempowered are you? Just asking.
Thank you, Dewitt, for the response. Of course, the question is always the unit of focus. Do we focus on the individuals to make them communities, or do we focus on communities collectively so that we address issues that are manifested by dysfunctions in individuals? And that's the area of focus that Dewitt has led us through, so that then we can find out how ultimately to build capacities at individual level and ultimately capacities at community level. And then, of course, there's the aspect of, again, what is bringing about empowering individuals, because once individuals and a critical mass of individuals are empowered, then we can now start talking about empowerment at a collective level and a community level. But I think, Dewitt, I don't want to get back to what is already competently led us through. Any other intervention? We have about 6 or so minutes.
There is one in the chat. There is one in the chat of how do we change the mindset of leaders who focus is the quick fix. We have to empower individuals to challenge the leaders. And that is very important. Or we have to empower the leaders. Because again, we don't have to build the capacity of the leaders. You build the capacity in the community to challenge the leaders. You build the capacity with empowered people to challenge the leaders. That is the collective process. But it just makes sense if we are consistent in our view and deliberations and in the theory of community development, in making this distinction, and not use capacity building and empowerment as interchangeable and just nice words, because you cannot default it.
Thank you, Dewitt. And this clarification makes a lot of difference for us, because often we get some of these concepts being used interchangeably, but now you've brought out the illumination so that we can understand then where we are in terms of then communicating in a way that is professionally correct as we do promote our discipline and practice. Ultimately, we are trying to get a people-centered community development process. Are we capacity building? Are we empowering them? Or what exactly are we trying to do? Of course, Amid who talked about social protection as one of the interventions in community development. But I think I want to just also to indicate we can do social protection and then be so less empowering if more so we focus at the level of just providing for welfare and providing safety nets, which then may not build sustainability interventions. And that, again, is an area that we also need to look at, because where we have social protection, most of the time, we are already operating at the bottom of the pyramid. And we need to get mechanisms where we can now raise people from the bottom of the pyramid all the way up. And that means then social protection measures need to be very short-term, very targeted, and often with a timeline so that they don't become a permanent intervention and ultimately disempower people or break the possibilities of empowering people to get out of that extreme need where they need social protection.
I just wanted Daniel to come in here and say that social protection is a capacity building capability, capacitated capability of a community. You cannot have a social protection without empowered individuals that you orchestrate. So you could see where we're going with the concepts. Social protection is a capacity that exists in the community. But that capacity must be filled with empowered individuals.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing some comments in the chat. Any comments?
I've seen a Ugandan response there. Yes, it is true. This top-down thing. And again, empowerment and capacity building fuses the top-down and bottom-up. It brings it together. And it is in empowerment and capacity building that the fusion of a top-down and bottom-up approach happens, because the one is not good without the other.
Okay, thank you very much. We have maybe 2 minutes. I think we will need to wind up. We have, I saw the question that whether there's a WhatsApp group. We have an IACD, Sub-Saharan African Region WhatsApp group, which is our major mobilization platform and networking platform. You want me to include it, then get in touch with, I've shared my telephone number, +254 721 237 458. And of course, you need to be a member of IACD to be part of this process. So join IACD, then I will put you in the network. You go to IACD Global website, then joining becomes very easy for you. As part of winding up, yeah, thank you, Medith. I want to recognize two pioneers of this, a pioneer of this platform and this webinar series, just to say hi. And then I will go to the next person I wish to recognize. Janine Ward was a pioneer presenter in this series. Kindly, just say hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi there. Good to see everyone. Thank you for
Hi,
the
Janine.
presentation. Hi, Sadi. Good to see you.
Sure.
Thanks again, Daniel and Meredith, for making this platform available.
Thank you, Janine, and thank you for all the support and leadership. And the last minute I want to give to the Vice Chair of IACD, who is present with us, Catherine.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Daniel, for this very well-prepared presentation and webinar that continues. And I'm just happy that we in Africa are growing a CD. What today has been presented and shared, I mean, it's just amazing. Let's just keep moving and let's all join IACD if you're not a member yet. So thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you, the presenter, and thank you, everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I've shared the topics for the next 3 months. And so we'll be, of course, giving further communication. I still am looking for 4 presenters so that we can go up to the end of the year with a full calendar. December will be an open forum for all of us to come and just reflect. And then, of course, we can vision going forward. The WCDC 2022 in Georgia, Ureki, Georgia, scheduled for October. Let's just keep focus. Of course, we are aware of what is happening in Eastern Europe. We pray that all goes on well. So, but in the meantime, we can continue to register for World Community Development Conference 2022 in Ureki, Georgia. So as we come to the end, let's again once more give our loud of appreciation to Professor DeWitt for a well-made presentation and challenging presentation. And of course, we appreciate all of us as we check out. Thank you very much. So the recording will be available on our website